actually, he said it, that other mayors across the country are calling him and saying, what have you done? And we want to do that here. Is this part of a national conversation over the defunding of law enforcement coast to coast?
Yes, it is, and I think in some ways the Los Angeles might be the canary in this political coal mine, if you will. I think we're going to see this. We're already seeing it in Minneapolis. We've seen it in LA. You're going to see it in a lot of cities, and it is going to be. This is to me probably is going to be a preview of city politics in urban America for the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, these are not going to be fights that are just going to happen this summer and this fall. You're going to have, I think, a lot of activism, a lot of people running for city council seats that are going to be running on platforms of defunding the police department or cutting their resources and redirecting those resources. And it's going to, you and I've been around been around where it was bad politics to be on the side of cutting police forces and good politics, left or right, on adding cops on the street. So this is, I think, going to be a very volatile issue in urban politics for maybe for the next decade. I mean, it may go back to what we saw a lot in the 70s and 80s in sort of the roiling of urban politics following the upheavals of the 60s.
Right. You don't have to be old to remember that. You have to be like 2 weeks old to remember that, because just not long ago, some of these council members in this city, and I'm sure elsewhere, were campaigning on greater law enforcement and greater public safety, which adds to the dilemma, because crime doesn't go away. And you had Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, who bemoaned the fact that the Chicago Police Department sat on their hands, stopped arresting people, and crime went through the roof. That is the next part of this cycle, potentially.
And Conan, it's sort of frustrating to me. There are some police reforms that can be done. I mean, because you talk to many community leaders, and even in communities of color, like, they want community police on the street. Now, they want them to be well trained, to be racially sensitive, not necessarily wanting them to be presence that are somehow intimidating. They don't want them to be that, but there's a lot of wanting for that. There are some, you could create, police forces, you could argue, there's a lot more automation that could take place. You could figure out ways to decrease the amount of interactions that you have between police and individuals. Maybe you stop having speed traps by human beings and instead make that all automated. There are some reforms that could be done that might save some money, but then don't look like there's some sort of, okay, you're either for the cops or against the cops. And I think that figuring out what the middle ground looks like, where it's a scalpel, and figuring out what's smart policing look like. Smart policing may cost more money, or maybe it saves money, but maybe that ought to be the goal, smart policing.
Right, and the LAPD has units. We're going to interview Connie Rice, a civil rights attorney who is a pioneer of police reform, the Community Safety Partnership in some of the low-income neighborhoods of Los Angeles, some of the housing projects where they're beloved by the folks who live down there. They consider them protectors and not oppressors. So to that point, there are people who advocate exactly what you said. There are ways of doing it, right, without the warrior mentality, which is the hallmark of so many departments. Like, if I could move on for a moment, though, the president's down to 38% approval rating. You get the impression that the wheels are coming off the wagon when it comes to members of the administration, such as Defense Secretary, previous members of his White House. What do you make of the road of going forward, the road that President Donald Trump is going to have to take when it comes to the economy, the pandemic, and now this?
Well, look, I think it's been, up until that, the one piece of good news that the president got this week is that jobs report. Other than that, it was pretty much, you could argue, one of his worst weeks politically. To have so many one-time allies sort of denounce his presidency, not just a specific action, but start to denounce the presidency as a whole. It's not a good place to be, and you're starting to see some cracks even with some soft Republicans, and sort of what I call, I think, I've always thought that the president's biggest issue is going to be exhaustion from the polarization. and that while Donald Trump's antics may have been okay when the comparison was with Hillary Clinton, who many people viewed just as polarizing, Joe Biden doesn't have the same sort of 25-year polarized baggage that Hillary Clinton was carrying with the American electorate. And so I do think the exhaustion that many feel with sort of the constant, I mean, we have a very unique way in our new NBC Wall Street Journal poll of looking at this. We just did an open-ended question, asked people to tell us how they feel. What message do they want to send to the president? We had a whole slew of people who approve of the president's job rating, who basically said, I wish he'd stop tweeting, he's got to stop doing that, he's got to stop dividing, he's got to try to bring the country together. And these were people that told us statistically they approved of his job. The point is, you're starting to see there are real cracks in his coalition, and I would argue for the very first time.
Who's on the program?
Well, we're going to have the founder of the Black Lives Movement on, Alicia Garza. We're going to have Lonnie Bunch on, who's a longtime the founding director of the African American Smithsonian Museum. But we're also going to have Cory Booker and Admiral Stavridis and talking about what happened in Washington, D.C. and with the military and the president this week as well.
Chuck Todd, host of Meet the Press, thank you very much. Stay safe and good luck.
Thank you, sir. You too.
NBC4's news conference at 9 o'clock follows with that debate over the defunding of the Los Angeles Police Department as we talk with Councilmember Curran Price, who signed the motion along with Nuri Martinez, the council president, on slashing the LAPD budget. We also get a reaction from the Police Protective League, as well as Earl Sothers, a policing expert from USC, and civil rights attorney Connie Rice. That's news conference at 9 o'clock following Meet the Press. We'll see you then.